Welcome to the Fortified Life podcast, where we learn how to develop a dependency on Jesus in the marketplace. From the boardroom to the bathroom, God is with you. Here's our host, author, speaker, teacher, encourager, stewardship coach, and my husband, the man they call Mr. Fortified, Jason Davis.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Fortified Life podcast, where we are passionate about developing a dependency on Jesus in the marketplace. Every week, we have the opportunity to bring on coaches, authors, speakers, CEOs, people who are just intentional about putting God back in business. And it's no different this week. Of course, yours truly, your host, Jason Davis, Mr. Fortify. It's an honor to be with you all every single week. Now, our guest today is a powerful woman of God, and I'm very excited for her to share her testimony and how that really shaped her life. Before I bring her on, let me introduce her to you. Anna Megrelishvili founded the Christian Professionals Network worldwide in Atlanta, Georgia, blending her passion for positive change with actionable initiatives. CPNW goes beyond typical networking by integrating business relationships with service-oriented values, fostering global community transformation. Grounded in Christian principles, Anna ensures CPNW serves as a collaborative hub, uniting leaders to pursue societal betterment. Monthly networking events not only facilitate professional connections, but also spotlight local nonprofits offering hope and inspiration. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Fortified Life. Anna Megrelishvili. Anna, what's going on?
Hello. Thank you for having me on this podcast. And I'm excited to share my journey and my story with all of you.
Absolutely. Anna, before we begin, just a huge shout out to a mutual friend of ours, Jeff Bond, just an awesome individual. So just shout out to you, Jeff, if you're listening to this.
Yes, thanks for connecting us, Jeff. You're the best.
Well, Anna, you have a very unique testimony and a powerful one, and one that I believe many need to hear. So let's start there about how you came to Christ and how that shaped really the foundation for you of everything going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Many people who meet me now are very surprised to learn that I was an atheist until about 4 years ago. So my journey began by me growing up in Eastern Europe in the country of Georgia, which is ironic since now I live in the state of Georgia. So I grew up in a highly dysfunctional family. God was definitely not part of our family. I was more than just, I was angry with God, I think. Growing up, I thought, if God exists, then why would he allow all these horrible things to happen to me as a child? And so I just was shined away from the religion, anything God related for most of my life. So then fast forward to 2008 is when I moved to the United States. So I was going to college, then I got my master's, and then just kind of climbing that corporate ladder, right? Very successful in what I did. I used to be in B2B sales and just living my life, right? But there was this kind of unhappiness inside of me that was constant companion. So anytime I would achieve the next goal, I would achieve it. The happiness was very short-lived. And then I was like, okay, well, what's next? So fast forward to COVID year, I think it was transformational for many people. I was no exception. So it's October of 2020, and I don't typically wake up in the middle of the night. Just that's very unusual. So I want to set that. And that particular night, I wake up and I'm just wide awake. And I've never prayed in my life, but suddenly I felt compelled to pray. And I didn't know how to really pray. So it went something like, God, if you exist, what's the purpose of this life? Like, there has to be more to life than this. Show me what is my purpose. And so what followed was quite supernatural, frankly. I heard an audible voice, not just a voice like inside of me, like an audible outside of myself voice with very clear directions of go to the store, make lunches, feed the hungry. Right. So you hear something like this and you're like freaked out. So I was like pinching myself thinking, am I dreaming? Is this real? Because I'm a highly logical person. And so I don't know how, but I forced myself to go to sleep and I was like, I'm going to deal with this in the morning. So fast forward to the morning, I wake up and I could feel, no, what happened last night was real because you can feel it in your core. Something happened. And so I call into work and I say, sorry, I cannot come in and work today. So instead, I follow the instructions. So I go to the store, bring back the supplies. I make 24 bags of lunches, pack them up. And then I was like, okay, I've seen a lot of people living in the street downtown Atlanta. So I'm just going to go and start driving there. So that's what I do, start driving, giving these lunches away. And after about an hour, I come across a group sitting together in the street. So I park my car, I count them, and I have exact same number of lunches left in my bag. So I was like, well, that's weird, So I was like, okay, great. Get the whole big bag, walk over there, and just give them all out. Everybody's happy, they got lunches. So I think, okay, I'm done for the day. Was about to get in my car. And suddenly one of the ladies calls me and she says, hey, honey, come over here. I have a gift for you. So, in my head, I'm thinking, what? You want to give me a gift? So anyway, I walk over and she has this big bag of all of her belongings. So she's just rummaging in this bag, looking for this gift, right? I'm waiting. Suddenly she pulls this little bird out of her bag and she's like with this big smile, hands it to me and she said, this is for you. So I get it and I examine it and it's this little sparrow. And on the chest, it was written, now in God's hands. And
Wow.
so as soon as even now, like I get chills as I say the story, because that moment was just life transforming for me. It felt like this lightning bolt just struck my heart and I just burst into tears. I get in my car embarrassed, right, that I'm sobbing. But the thing that happened is there's this phrase that keeps repeating in my head. And I keep thinking, God is real. God is real. He's talking to me. God is real. So I drive home and I kid you not, I order my first Bible from Amazon because I'm like, I need to figure this out. Like, what's happening? So the next day, my Bible arrives. So I start reading it just like cover to cover, right? And for somebody who never read a Bible, it's like you don't understand probably even half of it, right? So then I was like, okay, I need help. So then I literally started Googling best churches in Atlanta. Like I would Google restaurant. So then I picked a church based on the reviews and I just started going. So,
Wow.
I started going and it was about a year later that of studying and just really understanding what it meant to be a follower of Jesus when I got baptized and, became a follower of Christ. So needless to say, my entire life just got transformed. So think of this. That desire of happiness and that I felt right before the prayer only gotten stronger and stronger and stronger. Like something is off with my life, right? I need to change. So eventually it led to a point where I decided I need to take a sabbatical.
Mm-hmm.
And I was planning to quit my job. I had this kind of plan. Okay, I'm going to quit my job and then I'm going to go and search for my purpose. I need the time to really see God's wisdom and see what my purpose is. My plan got kind of cut shorter than what it was supposed to be. because unexpectedly, I found out that my grandfather killed my uncle in his sleep back in Eastern Europe, right?
Wow.
Entire family ends up being in this national news, right? I'm watching this news broadcasting of my grandfather. He's 82 years old. He's in handcuffs, and I'm just devastated, right? Like, what a life he must have been living to choose to take such a sin upon his soul just to get out of that whole situation. So at that point, I'm like, not this life doesn't matter. Like, I really need to figure out how I can be helping people, because my biggest thing I wanted is I want a vocation where I bring positive impact on this world.
Mm.
So that event happened on January 31st of 2022. The next day, I went into the office and gave my 2-week notice.
Oh my goodness.
I am ready. So give my 2-week notice. Then okay, I'm like terrified, right? Because I have worked every day since I'm 18, never ever had this kind of just jump off the cliff. So I decided, God, I am willing to surrender completely. You take me anywhere in this world. I had my condo put up for sale. I said, nothing needs to be tying me to Atlanta. If you want me, Lord, to go anywhere in the world, I will. And I made this plan of where basically going back to Georgia for some time to really heal that relationship with my past and really seek God's guidance there. And then I went to Jordan, Israel, and Palestine to really visit all the holy places and really get closer to God, right? Like that was the first journey on that sabbatical. So throughout a lot of meandering, and I'm not going to get in all the details, 6 months or so into it, and 12 countries later, the sale of my condo fell through 3 times at the closing table with 3 different buyers. At the third time, I'm like, okay, clearly you want me back in Atlanta. I hear you. So cut my travels short and I come back to Atlanta. So now at this point, we are in October of 2022. So one of the practices that I always wanted to implement is silent retreats. We have a lot of examples of Jesus going to, isolated places by himself in prayer. And I wanted to experience that. So my first silent retreat was in October of 2022, where I went to this monastery in Kentucky for a whole week, no talking, no cell phones, no communication with the world, right? And just really seeking that solace. I did have my laptop with me, but I didn't have Wi-Fi. And during that 5 days, in 2 of those days, I wrote my book. So it felt like a kind of a divine download, right? And so my book is called Find Courage to Change. And the whole premise around it was, talking about really 3 generations on my father's side and 4 generations on my mother's side, and how trauma gets passed on generation to generation until you have that cycle breaker like myself, where you really say no more, enough is enough, and then you start seeking the healing. So I talk a lot about like the experience of trauma and how you can heal. And, I am a survivor of child sexual abuse. And so that's a very taboo topic still in this country. And so me being vocal about it, I think God is using it to really let other survivors who might feel isolated or feel shame around it, to know that healing is possible, change is possible. And, there are other women who are very successful and thriving now who have experienced it. And so it's been a real blessing for me just to have that experience of sharing the book. Okay. So that's one thing that happened after the silent retreat, the first one. So then fast forward to December of 2022, my year of sabbatical is coming to the end, and I still don't know what exactly I'm supposed to be doing. So I'm like, okay, this time I'm going again to a different monastery for a silent retreat. And let's pray about, God, show me what my purpose is, right? So again, 5 days, 4 out of 5 days, nothing. God is just really quiet. I don't hear anything, right? So it's literally last evening, my last prayer session before I go to sleep the next morning, I'm leaving the monastery. So, as I'm praying and okay, God, I haven't heard really what you want from me. So I guess I'm just gonna continue and wait for you to open doors or close doors, or maybe you want me to go back to sales, right? And whoosh, suddenly I get this. So the vision is this basically organization that's a foundation, right? And there's a specific business plan, and I'll get to it here in a little bit. So I'm not going to get the details here because there's like a timeline behind it. So there's this whole vision about this nonprofit that's going to really change a lot of things in this country. And I just fall down on my knees and start sobbing because I'm at this point, I'm like, God, I am nobody. I'm a salesperson. Like, I don't even have a large Christian network around me because I was an atheist most of my life. Like, how am I supposed to do this? So I'm just sobbing. I'm like, no, I'm not worthy, right? So anyway, so then I start talking with some of the other Christian friends. And so the thing was, okay, God asked me to do this, and he showed this as a successful venture, right? It doesn't mean I have to do it tomorrow, but I need to start moving toward it. And I think a lot of people make that mistake of getting so overwhelmed by whatever God is asking of them, and then just ignore it, right? And it cannot be done. It's impossible. But to me, breaking it down into a more manageable steps, because God is not asking necessarily for us to accomplish it tomorrow, but he is asking us to start moving toward it, right? That's kind of the approach that I took. So I said, okay, what can I do to begin to move me toward this endeavor? Okay, I need to build a larger Christian network of business professionals around me. Great. Start Googling Christian meetups, Christian professionals organizations, and really didn't find anything in Atlanta that met monthly and on consistent basis. So I was like, well, gonna start my own. So literally January 9th, so we're talking about less than 2 weeks later, Christian Professionals of Atlanta was born. So original name was of Atlanta. So that's where we started meeting every month, featuring nonprofits, growing the Christian circle. So think of this. A year goes by, we do this. In the year, I was able to build around me almost 500 people who have come to our events. A lot of major nonprofit leaders now know who we are, who I am as a leader. My influence as a leader has grown. So I'm like, okay, we're ready to start the next stage of what God wants, right? So then January of this year, we just rebranded to be Christian Professionals Network Worldwide. And it was interesting because I thought originally, this is how also interesting how God thinks bigger than we do. When I first started, I purchased Christian Professionals of Atlanta domain. And then I went ahead and purchased Christian Professionals of America name because I was like, okay, this is going to grow US wide. Nationally. So, but end of last year, the first request for us to start a chapter comes from Brazil. Right? So I was like, okay, God, am I thinking too small? Like, you want this worldwide. Like, you don't want this just in the US. I'm like, okay, might as well. Let's just do it, right? So that was, I think, really cool to see how God is just like, as long as we're receptive of just his signs and messages and how he opens doors, he just, I never thought that big, right? He just thinks much bigger than any of us do. So fast forward again, this year, we just rebranded. So then next step, okay, now is the time to start the foundation. So from January and we just this month officially started the foundation. So this is what the original plan was. And so now I'm ready to share kind of the business plan that God has shared with me. So his heart, and this is an interesting how he brought the full circle of how I came to know God through a homeless woman, and our foundation is helping homelessness issue in this country.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't
Wow.
he the most like creative, beautiful storyteller? Because I cannot
I
make
love that.
I mean, it's just like, wow, I'm blown away by him every day. So the foundation that we have now basically battles relationship poverty. That's a term
Mm.
not a lot of people know what it means, but it's a big issue in the United States. So relationship poverty affects 1 in 5 Americans in many ways. So 1 in 5 Americans report that they feel isolated, lonely. They don't have a community around them. What that translates to economically, and there's some research behind it, that the United States economy loses about $9.5 billion in
Whoa.
productivity, in expenses on medical issues like depression and so on because of it. But we're going to take it even further. Relationship poverty is the number one reason why people become homeless. And that's not a known fact. Many people think when you say a homeless person, it's a mentally ill image of a person on the side of the street. But the reality of it is that many people who become on the verge of being homeless actually live paycheck to paycheck. Something
Mm.
unexpected happens, they lose their job, they maybe have a medical issue, maybe they break up with their partner, and suddenly they don't have a community around them. They don't have friends, they don't have family. So they end up living in their cars. A lot of them maybe even end up in just kind of extended stay hotels, but they're still considered to be homeless. And so, we've had programs in this country for many, many, many years battling the homelessness issue. But the problem is that piece of the relationship poverty is what we also need to fix for it to be a holistic program, right? So with our foundation, we want to work on the relationship poverty 2 ways. So on the foundation side, we will have mentorship programs. So think of a very well-known program that's kind of a leader in our country is Big Brothers, Big Sisters. So
Mhm.
similar concept, but instead of pairing adult and child, you are pairing a business Christian professional with somebody who's struggling with homelessness. And so it's a
Okay.
long-term mentorship. It's 18 months. And what we're not as mentors paying for their bills or anything like this. But what we will do is if they don't have a church community, they come to church with us. Like I pick up my mentee, they come to church with me. I introduce them to other people in the church. We grow their community around them. And then obviously there's a lot of lack of skills that also mentors can help with. Something sometimes as simple for us as opening a savings account is not a knowledge that they have. And so just think of it as you have a friend who you can help just advise, right? Your knowledge and pouring into them and growing their community. So by the time the foundation 18 months is up, right, we're still not done with them. At that point, we hope that they're fully reintegrated into society. They have a job, they have their own place. They now successfully have their faith community. At that point, we will be gifting them a year-long membership in our Christian Professionals Networking side so that now they can keep coming and meeting now professionals and hopefully, growing their professional circle as well. So what we hope to accomplish is affect 2 metrics. One is the percentage of people who go through our program who never go back to homelessness again should be
Mhm.
close to 0. And second is their income level. We don't want them to be stuck in low income jobs so that they're, again, just one disaster away from being in the street, right? We want to surround them with people who can elevate their skills. We have a lot of business owners part of our network who potentially could hire them because now they have that one-on-one relationship. As you know, like 50% of jobs in the United States never get published. It's all just word of mouth kind of hiring. And so it is important for them to be part of this community. And so I know it's a long-winded story, but I think like it all now ties in with how I went from being an atheist to what I do today. And so I'll be quiet now and let you ask some questions.
No, Anna, that was powerful. I got chills while you were sharing that. There were so many different things that came to mind as you were sharing. I guess one big one, Anna, that I was thinking about listening to you is just the importance and the impact of purpose. Like we literally saw how you came to Christ, and then the relational aspect, truly having a relationship with God, and knowing that purpose has shaped your life. When you think back to your journey, what does purpose mean to you now?
One question. So I ask people who ask me this question is, how would you change your life if tomorrow you opened your bank account and there is $100 million sitting in that bank account?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Many people then say, oh, I would quit my job. I would do this. So to me, if you would quit your job and if you change, that means you're really not aligned with your purpose.
It's good.
So if I had $100 million right now, there's not one thing I would change, but guess what? I would have all the resources I need to grow what I'm doing a lot faster. That there's not one thing I would change in my life, right? And so people always think it's cheesy, but I think it's true. If I had all the money in the bank and I don't need to get paid, I would still do it for free. That's the purpose, right? Like you're just so happy with what you're doing. And it doesn't matter what it is. You could be a singer, you could be a writer, right? You could be an accountant. I've met accountants who absolutely love what they do, and they're using their skills because they're very talented in that, and they become board members, right, of nonprofits, and they use their skills there. It does not matter what you do, but it's really that question. If you had a lot of money in your bank account, how would you change your life? And that's the answer. If just sit with it, write down. Like I always tell people, just really imagine it, like feel it, right? You need to feel that it's true. Like imagine that your bank account has that number and write down the thoughts that are coming. What would you change? Like, how would you do it? And then start moving toward that. I think the fear holds us back from pursuing our purpose a lot of the time. But to me, it's scarier to be stuck all your life in the wrong vocation. And then at the end of the life, I don't want any of you to have a regret of thinking, I wish I would have taken that chance, or I wish I would have pursued this, because that's the most common regret that people have, right? And every day I think about also like, if something were to happen to me tomorrow, would I have any regrets, right? Like you want the answer to be no. You live your life like today could be the last day, right? Because tomorrow is not promised. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
So good. That was a mic drop statement right there, Anna. Now, Anna, you mentioned something too. I'm familiar. I've not been on one, but I've been on a retreat that had an aspect of this, a silent retreat. Now, can you talk about the benefits of that for the people? Because Anna, I think some people, they hear that silent retreat like, oh, what is that? What do you mean you go somewhere and nothing said for 5 days or a week? So tell everybody about that and what's really happening when you're spending time with God in that environment.
So to me, silent retreat is now a non-negotiable part of my life. So
Mm.
I've been going to silent retreats about every 4 months, once every 4 months or so. So far, since my very first one, I've been on 5 silent retreats, and it's unlike anything you'll ever experience. And the most common question that I get asked is, well, I don't have time, or how can you afford to go away for 5 days, right? But what they don't realize is that that 5 days cuts years of work for me,
Mm.
because God tells me exactly, right? You get quiet, God pours into you like exactly what you need to do next. What I have accomplished in a year and a half, the only reason why it's accomplished so quickly is because of this guidance I've been getting through this silent retreats. And especially a lot of people are burned out. I mean, in this country, we have a culture of just working, and we have
Mm.
all these commitments. And when we rest, it's really not true rest, because we go on vacations, but it's really lots to do, right? Or maybe just, I don't know, hanging out at the beach. This is when you are at silent retreat, it's what's called active rest. So
Mm.
you're basically shutting everything else out, except your relationship with God. So imagine the last time you've walked into the room and nothing was expected of you.
Mm.
For most people, they say it has been last time when they were a child. Okay.
Wow.
Because every time we walk into the room, somebody needs something from us. We are constantly connected with the phone.
Yeah.
When we go on silent retreats, it's this environment where, nobody can reach me. The only person I need to communicate with is God, and
Hmm.
nothing is expected of me, because God just wants relationship, right? He wants us to be in communion with him. And so a lot of just aha moments happen. And I want to talk a little bit kind of what happens during it. I highly
Yeah.
recommend for anybody who goes to go minimum 3 days. And here's why. Like, I would recommend 5, but do not do less than 3 full days. And here's
Mm.
why. And I've asked other people. So a lot of people now start going on silent retreats after I recommend it. And I ask them if they have similar experience, and they do. So here's what ends up happening. First day to day and a half, you feel, when you go to silent retreats, like you've worked in the fields for like a week. Basically, you suddenly, all the tiredness just leaves your body. So I typically sleep sometimes for up to 16 hours that first. I mean,
Wow.
it's the craziest. The only thing I do in the middle is just pray and go back to sleep, pray, go back to bed. And sometimes it's not really, you don't sleep, but it's kind of like you're laying and you're meditating. So you're still
Mm.
communicating with God, but you're really restful. I do try to fast when I'm there, because I think fasting really helps to go deeper.
Hmm.
Um, so I cannot really do complete 24 hours. So instead, what works for me is I eat once a day, every day that I'm there. And I do vegetarian. So it's very clean. It's all, just clean eating. So day and a half goes by, and then finally you're like, wow, you just feel like you've been on a 2-week vacation in a day and a half.
Mm.
So that's when, really, on the third day is when you empty yourself, and that's when you're really ready to start receiving. So that's why I don't recommend to go less than 3 days, because that third day is really important when you start really receiving, guidance and just really understanding God's will. So I typically take my Bible, my journal, and I do take spiritual books, so Christian books,
Hmm.
just around the topic that, like, for me, obviously, business is important. So I have taken books written by Christian authors around work and faith, because that just
Mm.
starts getting your mind working about like how to structure things and so on. And then I do take some worship music. Music really connects, and I do recommend to go to a place where you can be in the nature quite a bit. So I typically
Mm.
try to do about 3 hours outside, whether it's a hike or a walk, because it's beautiful just to being with God. And honestly, like every time, I don't really want to come back. It's just so amazing. And for the first time, I truly understand why people become monks or nuns, because the happiness, like with the silent retreats, we just get like a glimpse of that true calm and happiness. And I now seek it every 4 months or so. I just go away. I just went back in May and going back in the fall. That's just part of my Christian walk now.
Mm. I love that, Anna. I think more people are going to, based on your description, they're going to be more open about going on a silent retreat. Just so powerful. Anna, before we get ready to go, a couple more things. When you talk about the rebrand of the organization, Christian Professionals Network worldwide, what does a typical meeting or chapter meeting look like? What takes place? What are the interactions like? And I know I'm sure you all have events and whatnot, but what can somebody expect when they come to a meeting?
Yeah. So we try to really differentiate ourselves in the sense that how would we want to? I always think about, you don't have to be a Christian to attend our events. So this might be a first time somebody who is not a Christian encounters a group of Christians. So how would I want them to see the group and think,
Mhm.
wow, there's something different about them? So I use this also not just as a gathering of Christians, but also as a pathway for the great commandments of making more disciples,
Mhm.
right? So when, we meet once a month, and we have anywhere between 50 to 70 people attending the event, and they're all, professionals within the Atlanta area. And when they walk in, so we have greeters. So we have somebody who will always stand by the entrance to the room, kind of how you get that in the church. But,
Mhm.
the reason behind that is that a lot of people get very intimidated when they first come to networking event, especially if you're an
Yeah.
introvert, right? And it's your first time, it could be really scary. And so having that someone right there saying, "Hey, welcome. Tell us, how did you hear about us? Tell us what you do." And then immediately warmly passing them on to somebody else that would be a good connection for them. I think that's been a really amazing experience for our attendees, right? So our meetings are about 2.5 hours long, and we give like the first 45 minutes for them to network. And then we have a very short program. So every month we have a different nonprofit who comes in and
Mhm.
gets featured. We give priority to Christian nonprofits,
Sure.
but then you don't have to be. And you get 15 minutes to talk about the mission. So we believe that, part of the Christian walk is being a servant leader and also serving your community. And a lot of the times, professionals get so busy, and yes, they do want to get involved, they want to serve, but if you don't make it easy, sometimes it's just not on the front mind, right? And you
Yeah.
just want to give that easy pathway for them. So this way, every month is a different mission. Every person is passionate about something different. So you have an opportunity to connect with a nonprofit, whether you want to support them financially or through volunteer projects. And then on top of that, once a quarter, we also do a community-wise service project where all of us we say, okay, last time we served in the pantry kitchen. Let's just
Mhm.
go and, serve together. So about 12 of us went and did that. Again, we want to be known in every community where we go as, okay, Christian professionals really serve our community and help. And then at the end of the program, we do typically different layouts. So sometimes we break up into kind of smaller groups of 10, and we have discussion topics around faith and work, so people
Mhm.
can go deeper in it. Sometimes we have where kind of like a speed weaving, where every person in the room gets to say what they do and who they are, and then they break and start meeting people that they want to meet. We've had different, let's see what else. And sometimes we've had it where we just let them go back to just free networking. So they have another about 45 minutes at the end to do that. And we do it monthly. And now we're set up to really grow it and so ready to start new chapters. So we set it up where it's kind of like a franchise model where we're in the United States, a Christian professional. If you're hearing and you're interested, like you can definitely reach out to me. And because we are looking to start chapters in other markets as well.
I love it. You're getting me excited already, Anna.
Good.
Anna, we are in the hot part of the summer. We are now in August. What other and there's expansion going on, but what are you excited about for the back half of the year? Being that we're almost through the summer now.
Yeah. Well, I hope that our foundation just really grows through the end of the year. So now we're in this kind of establishing phase where, we're just now pairing the mentors and mentees, and we really hope that it gets expanded and we get more mentors. So we're always looking for more and more mentors because there's a lot of people who are in need. And for the Christian professionals networking side, we have our August event coming up, and then we have our, monthly events moving forward, but always looking for expansion. So just looking for partners in other cities. And even in Georgia, like we are looking to start a chapter in Savannah and Macon. And so, yeah, it doesn't have to be a super huge city either. It can be, mid-sized cities as well.
I love it. Folks, coming to a city near you. Anna, this has been just wonderful. You have shared nuggets of wisdom. You've shared your story, which will resonate, has resonated, and will resonate with so many more. You've done all that by now, Anna. They're like, oh my gosh, how can I find out more information? So where can people get a copy of your book? Where can they learn more about the foundation as well as the organization?
Yeah, absolutely. If you go to www.cpnworldwide.com, that's where you can find all the information.
Folks, you heard it straight from her. You know where to find her. Anna, I just want to thank you so much for taking time out to hang out with us here on the Fortified Life podcast. We're going to have to do this again. There's so many other things I want to ask you about. I could be on for 3 hours, but folks, we have to let her go. She's got to continue conquering the world. So
thank you for having me, and I'm happy to come back anytime you need me.
Absolutely. Well, folks, that's all we have time for on this week of the Fortified Life podcast. You know how we end things. Don't compartmentalize your faith and the marketplace. And from the boardroom to the bathroom, God is with you. We'll have all of Anna's information in the show notes, and we'll see you next time on the Fortified Life podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Fortified Life podcast. You can catch us live on Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time and on demand. Check out fortifiedlifepodcast.com for more details. To learn how to live out your faith in the marketplace, grab a copy of Jason Davis's book, Fortified, Being Rooted in God's Plan for Work and Business, available on Amazon.